Nigerians today are asking for a fix on the Nigerian constitution, a major pushback on what a lot of people feel is an outdated document. There was a national public hearing today on the review of the 1999 Constitution organized by the House of Representatives. Nigeria's gross domestic product, GDP, has grown by 4.23% on a year-on-year basis in the second quarter of 2025. That is a report and has been told and reported by the National Bureau of Statistics in its latest report. It's a rainy day here in Abuja, the nation's capital. Welcome to Politics Today, live on Channels Television. I am Sean Wakimaloye in the nation's capital, FCT. Well, let's begin by giving you some cherry news about the Nigeria's economy. As reported by the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics, it's saying that in its report about the Q2 2025 that the Nigeria's gross domestic product has grown by 4.23% on a year-on-year basis in the second quarter of the year, according to the data that was released by the NBS. The latest figures shown an improvement from the 3.48% growth recorded in the same quarter of 2024, indicating continued recovery and resilience in the economy. According to the report, the agriculture sector grew by 2.82% in real terms during the period under review, an increase from the 2.60% recorded in the second quarter of 2024. The industry sector also showed strong performance, growing by 7.5% compared to 3.72% in the corresponding period of the previous year. Now, we need to be very careful as a people so we don't fall into the problems and the challenges we saw in the past. Anybody who is a student of history, we know that there is a banana peel, and this banana peel can lead us into more danger in the years ahead. When they say they are fixing the Constitution, what exactly are they talking about? When the laws are going to be reviewed, what exactly are they talking about? The promise of a Constitution is to hold the nation together, but we're saying that the Constitution we presently have is not the assurance of the kind of country that we want to all belong. Tonight, we will breaking it all down for you. What the Constitutional Amendment is all about, whether or not the National Assembly members mean well for this country, whether or not our problems rely in the solutions they are proffering. We're breaking it all down for you. Stick around with me. It's a most important conversation that we must have as a people. We need to talk to ourselves and say the truth. But before we get talking, let's check out some of your political roundup stories.
The trial against the suspended lawmaker representing Kogi Central Senatorial District, Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan, on alleged cybercrime before Justice Mohammed Umar of the Federal High Court Abuja was stalled following an objection raised by the defendant. At the resumed hearing, counsel to the prosecution, Mr. David Kaswe, who had a television mounted, told the court that they were ready to proceed with the trial, and the first witness was already present in court, but that suffered a setback. Meanwhile, Justice Emeka Nwite of the Federal High Court Abuja has fixed September 29 for hearing of a motion by the Osun State government challenging the jurisdiction of the court to hear a suit against withheld local government funds. At the resumed hearing, the state government insisted that since the vacation of the court came to an end on September 16, the case should be transferred back to Osogbo for appropriate hearing and determination of the suit. Its motion challenging the jurisdiction of the Abuja division of the court was predicated on two grounds, which includes that the authorization granted the Attorney General of the Federation for the matter to be heard during vacation in Abuja had been overtaken on the ground that the vacation has come to an end. The Inspector General of Police, Mr. Kaljo Betokun, is asking senior police officers and the leadership of the force to ensure that the force grows into an institution that is agile in planning, bold in execution, and united in vision. Speaking in Abuja at an executive capacity building workshop for top leadership of the Nigerian police force, Mr. Betokun says the success of the force will not be measured by the brilliance of one commander or the courage of a few units. He explains that it's by the strength of officers and men whose collective capacity to anticipate threats, to respond as one body, and to deliver security that Nigerians can see and feel every day. In Abuja today, women in their numbers from all 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory took to the streets in a peace walk, pressing lawmakers to pass the special seats reserved for women bill. The proposal seeks to create additional women-only positions in Parliament to boost female representation. The march began at the Mariam Babangida National Center for Women Development and moved to a stakeholders meeting where the women presented a formal memorandum to National Assembly leaders. The Edo State Independent Electoral Commission, ETSEC, has presented a certificate of return to the victorious candidate of the September 20th local government by-election at the Commission's headquarters in Ogba, Benin City. The certificates were presented by Ovucho Suleiman on behalf of the ETSEC chairman, marking the conclusion of the recently conducted by-election, despite a High Court expertise order restraining ETSEC from conducting the polls. Lastly, the Borno State chapter of the People's Democratic Party says the success of the recently held local government congress will position the party to take over the state government by 2027. According to party leaders, the transparent manner with which delegates emerge at both ward and local government levels has proven that the masses have accepted the party and are willing to replace the ruling APC with the PDP.
Thanks so much. And there you have it, everyone. Your political roundup stories, and you are now up to speed. Let's now get down to the matter. The National Assembly today has held an event in fixing Nigeria's constitution, which is the event of today is a landmark stage in the ongoing constitutional review. With a national public hearing done, it means we've moved closer to achieving the amendment and review of the constitution as envisaged in the life of this present National Assembly. This comes after a series of zonal hearings across the 6 geopolitical zones in July this year, where governors, civil society, women's group, traditional rulers, and other stakeholders engaged lawmakers on a broad set of reform proposals. Lawmakers say the submission structured along 13 thematic areas reflect some of the most urgent governance challenges confronting the nation. Among the key issues are electoral reforms such as single-day general elections, independent candidacy, and the creation of new regulatory commissions for political parties and electoral offenses. Proposals on security, especially the push for state police, generated a lot of debate, while the special seats bill seeks to boost women's representation in the National Assembly or in the legislature across the tiers of government, the different tiers of our nation, either the state and the national level. Other recommendations cover judicial independence, fiscal transparency, human rights protections, and the role of traditional institutions in the polity. If the review maintain its timeline with votes in November, state concurrence in December, and presidential assent by January, it could become one of the fastest and most structured amendment processes since this republic, the Fourth Republic, 1999. It began in 1999. But let me allow you to listen to some of those who spoke, especially those who are leading the charge. This is what the Speaker of the House and his Deputy Speaker Abbas and Deputy Kalu, what they said earlier today at a public hearing. Take a listen to them.
As Speaker, I pledge that we will take your contribution seriously and consider the bills with diligence, fairness, and urgency. We will engage the state assemblies respectfully and transparently to secure their concurrence. We will continue to work with the executive and with you, the people, to ensure that the amendment process proceeds smoothly. On behalf of the House of Representatives, I would like to thank you for your presence, your ideas, and your commitment to Nigeria's democratic project.
Before us today is a compendium of 87 proposed amendment bills, each a response to the felt needs and expressed desires of the Nigerian people. They are organized around the central pillars of a modern, functional, and just society. I must clarify, as we proceed, that the items and amendment proposals before us today are not yet laws. These are, at this stage, proposals, suggestions, and ideas that have emerged through one of the most inclusive and participatory exercises in Nigeria's constitutional history.
Those are the thoughts and part of the submissions of the presiding officers of the House of Representatives. Well, the president was represented by the Secretary of the Government of the Federation, and this is the president's position as to the importance of a constitutional review. Take a listen to the SGF.
Engagement is particularly important as it resonates strongly with the renewed hope agenda of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu GCFR, which seeks to enthrone good governance, inclusivity, and sustainable development. The process you are undertaking today is therefore not only about amending legal provisions. It is about giving Nigerians renewed confidence that their voices matter in shaping the future of our democracy. I urge all participants to approach this exercise with the spirit of patriotism, responsibility, and constructive dialogue. The quality of ideas generated here will go a long way in shaping the laws and institutions that will serve generations yet unborn.
All right, that's it. Expectations are that these bills, when they're reviewed, fixed, and the Constitution looks not brand new, because this is going to be the 6th alteration or so. If it is altered and reviewed in the way Nigerians will like it or want it or will meet their needs and aspiration, it needs to meet the good and help the Nigerian people. So there's someone man that has, in fact, I think participated in all of the alteration. It's usually in the midst of doing all of that. He's a constitutional lawyer, one of the brightest that we have in the country, one that has probably seen it all in terms of the 1999 Constitution and the alteration of our Constitution as we find it today. He's the Executive Director of Black and a constitutional lawyer. Mr. Clement Owanko is live for us in our studio. It's a pleasure having you tonight, Mr. Owanko.
Thank you, Sean. My privilege to be here.
Thank you so much. You have walked in the path of history in the sense that this Constitution is like a baby in your hands. You've seen it all. All of the alterations that we're seeing. What makes this particular set of alterations important?
Thank you. This is really, for a lot of people, very important, and for Nigerians and the National Assembly, because the first alterations, and, you know, I was involved in the first successful alteration of the 1999 Constitution. What we have seen here is an organic demand from people who are saying, following from the observation of Nigeria in the last couple of years, these are still outstanding issues that we would like the National Assembly to address. You would think that after 5 alterations, we should have stopped. But there are still a lot of issues that are not addressed. We still have the challenge of local governments. We still have the challenge of elections. So it's quite a wide range of issues that Nigerians are making demands on their members and senators to say, look, we would like you to go back to this issue. And I think that that's what makes this special, that there are special flagship amendments that National Assembly needs to address. And that's why this is so very important.
It's interesting. We have about 13 thematic areas, isn't it?
It's quite a bit.
Is that a bit?
It's quite a bit.
But
yeah.
putting it in, I saw the compendium that was produced by you in collaboration with some of your partners and the House of Reps. I saw how you have put them into a class of themes which allows us to be able to understand. If we may put those thematic areas on the screen for our viewers to understand what areas we are looking at. And you look at those areas, and interestingly, as a student of constitutional law and someone who had also reported series of constitutional amendments, there are part of this constitutional amendment that is reoccurring and never been successful. State police is one of them. Local government is also one of them. And in fact, it's interesting that some of these alterations some of these proposals keep coming and they are being shut down at the state level. So these are the thematic areas that is being worked upon. There are about 13 or so of them. Electoral reforms, judicial reforms, legislature, inclusive governance, security and policing, devolution of powers, strengthening of institutions, traditional institutions, fiscal reforms, citizenship and indigenship. This is another notorious one. I think it was in the fourth and fifth alteration that this has come up also. Fundamental human rights, local government reform, state and local government creation. These keep coming up every other time. But why does it, I'm asking you to lecture us tonight, local government alteration or amendment and state and local government creation, why are they very difficult to amend in the Constitution?
These are very contentious and controversial issues. Even the issue of indigenship. In fact, the House of Representatives have had to step down in this particular alteration, the issue of indigenship. So it's actually put out there, but it's not in consideration at this time. It's been stepped down. It's been stepped down, and so it's not a part of what is being reviewed. But there are several issues. Local government reform, if you recollect, the Supreme Court have had to even give judgments that perhaps that judgment, when you examine it, you would see that it requires constitutional alteration for it to be well-grounded and well-based. The issue of state police has been there. And if we take the experience from the 60s and put it into context to the time that the police became centralized, there are lessons to be learned. And there is an issue whether you could really easily manage states controlling police, and how do you counterbalance that with the federal police system? So it's a continuing conversation, and what the National Assembly is proposing is a system of federal and state policing system that has safeguards to ensure that the fears that people have are well protected. But it's a continuing conversation, I know, in both committees until if you recollect, or if we look back to history, we know the role that traditional rulers play in this country. How, of course, the evolution of the Nigerian state has meant that the issue of traditional rulers is continuously being redefined, and it's a conversation going on in the National Assembly now, how you can make sure that you don't lose the importance of the traditional rulership institution, but also ensure that you are following up with the evolution of society. But the most important in terms of interest, and if you came to the venue today of this public hearing, the number of women who were there, the number of men who were there, especially very interested in the issue of inclusive governance. How do you ensure that 50% of your population who are currently left out in terms of governance today, and we're talking of the legislature where you have only 4%, in the Senate, out of 109 members, you have only 4 members who are women, and indeed one of them is suspended at this time. So it further exacerbates that situation. In the House of Representatives, you have 360 members, and only 15 are women. So these are issues of grave concern in terms of the importance of the conversations going on. And of course, our electoral system, our judiciary, all of these are very contentious issues that are coming up in terms of how you ensure that the Constitution is finally settled. Personally, I believe that you need to have a wholesome conversation around the Constitution rather than this constant piecemeal, because at the end of the day, the conversations around the 1999 Constitution didn't quite happen. It was something that the military hurriedly bequeathed to Nigeria in 1999 when General Abdul Salam Abubakar handed over power. So it will continue to be an issue as long as these issues are not completely well addressed, whether it's electoral reform, our electoral system, as you know, continues to be a challenge for the country, that people have to build trust in the electoral system. And recent elections have shown that you really have to go back to the drawing table to reestablish citizens' trust in our electoral system.
So you look at a few, and I'm very worried about how these exercises year on year, I mean, in the life of the National Assembly come, and some of these things look like futility. And I was asking a specific question, which I thought that you might be able to illuminate our mind when people begin to ask the question. All of the 774 local governments in Nigeria are captured by name in the Constitution. And Section 8 provides of the Constitution how a local government or state can be created. And it gives us a most difficult way of amending or altering or including or creating more state or local government areas, which makes it more difficult than any other aspect of the Constitution to amend. And the reason why state assemblies and when it moves from this level and you needed concurrence in the state, these things fail. And this happened to state police. We've seen it in the past during Bajabi Amila, during the Saraki period. When this thing went into the state for concurrence, it never saw the light of day. Whether or not we have enough education at the critical level, that is a major issue. So it comes down to the governors and the state assembly, because that is when all of these things fall flat on their faces.
Yeah, you raised two conversations here. One is the process of amending the Constitution itself. And this is something that we need to go back to how we can do that. And sometimes you ask yourself, when you go through all of this process, when you look at the numbers of members of the National Assembly and you look at elected state legislators, it's about 1,000 elected officials. Let's say they all vote and say, yes, we approve amendment. It still means that when you look at the Constitution, one man will have to decide, and that's the president. So the president can decide whether to assent or refuse assent. So those are issues when you look at the Constitution, you ask yourself, why should that be the case? Secondly, the recurring question of local governments and states creation is something that requires a lot of education. Now, I've seen a lot of demand for state creation. I've seen a lot of demand for local government creation. And we see that these states are embedded, the names, and local governments are embedded in the Constitution. But those who are agitating for states, and I think the Deputy Speaker had spoken to this publicly, those who are agitating for states are perhaps putting the cat before the horse. The first stage is not to put in a request to the National Assembly. In fact, that's the last stage. The first stage is that those who are making the demand for a state need to sign up to it, get a referendum to be conducted, and when that referendum approves it, that's when it goes to the National Assembly. None of these state creation requests has started, unfortunately, because I see a lot of resources wasted, a lot of time wasted, demanding for states and their creation without reading the Constitution. So it would seem to me that while the National Assembly opens itself up to receiving these requests, they still make the point that for this to go forward, you have to look at the Constitution, get members, whether it is from the local government councils or State House Assembly or National Assembly, who are from the area making a demand to vote
in a referendum.
In a referendum conducted by INEC. And this is collated and verified.
And then taken to...
Then it's taken to the National Assembly. The National Assembly now sends this to the states and then the states have to vote. So you have 2/3 of states have to vote for a single local government to be created, for a state to be created. So I don't think we should spend too much.
And the same thing is to local government. The Constitution seems to have provided similar way in creating more local government.
It's the same
thing. It's the same process.
Yeah, it's the same
you have
process.
to do the referendum, go back to the locality and that the people of that area to do a vote, pass it as a referendum, then send it to the National Assembly. But so you fear, as a constitutional lawyer, that state creation and local government creation might not meet up in this particular set of alteration that we're looking at.
Well, I think the demand
because
has
of
to
the
be made in accordance with the Constitution, and I haven't seen
any
that happen. So when people say National Assembly is going to create so many states, I don't think that even that news reporting is
not see the light of day.
It's not an accurate
So
news
psychologically,
reporting.
we should just cross it out on our list. Let's be realistic with ourselves.
I think what we would do is to encourage those who want more states, who are making the demand, to read the Constitution and follow the guidelines.
We'll go on a break, Mr. Wanko. But when we return, I'll take one of those areas. We'll take them one after the other. The ones that are important to Nigerians, the monies in their pocket, the food on their table, and perhaps how they live their lives. And we have quite a few of them that we must touch tonight on this program. And we'll try to get insight in how, if fixed, how it will affect our lives and the implication for the Nigerian people. We'll take a break, everyone. And when we return, well, the knowledgeable man in the program tonight, Mr. Waka, will be giving us more insight after this break. Of River State has met with President Bola Tinubu at the presidential villa earlier today. The days after he was reinstated as governor of River State. The governor is at the State House in Abuja on a visit to the president. Mr. Fubara arrived at the villa alone at about 6:20 p.m. and made his way towards the office of the president. Mr. Fubara was suspended from office in March by President Tinubu alongside his deputy, and the State House of Assembly, following the political unrest in the state, returned to office officially after the reinstatement on the 19th of September 2025. Let's get back to the conversation on how the constitutional amendment process will impact on our lives. Let's first begin. I'm not going to segment our conversation going forward on how important this is and how it will impact on our lives. The fundamental one for me right now is the issue of state police. And if you look at what we have in that document and the proposals, do you think the proposition for state policing or state police in this process makes sense or could help us fix insecurity in this country?
I think everyone in this country admits that the police is not able to do the job that it has, which is to provide security around the country, which is why you've seen the military get involved in maintaining internal security. And everyone is searching for a solution. And one of the proposals on the table is to create police at the state levels as well. There's also been, like you rightly point out, the question of state policing. So it's a conversation how to make that tricky distinction between state police and state policing. And that's why the National Assembly has been examining this issue quite closely. And at this time, I think that a lot of the concerns that citizens raise are very important to look at. How do you ensure that state police is not abused by incumbents in the states? I think that's a major issue. But also there is the issue that from Abuja, it's so difficult for the police to be controlled across the country. And the big issue is, do you really need that nature of control that police is controlled from one central level, which is from the Office of the Inspector General of Police, who literally issues command right down to community levels. I think that I'm not quite sure we found an answer, but I know that this is a conversation that is being taken very seriously as the National Assembly tries to finalize the proposals that it has for the creation of state police.
In the manner in which the proposal has come this time around, I don't know what made some people or stakeholders at the state level, because it failed the last time. I don't know what has changed and whether or not this might be successful, because more than ever, we need to use the Constitution to help fix the problem of insecurity in Nigeria, because it is a structural problem. The state governors are frustrated. They say they cannot handle security in their own territory because they don't have the power to do so. But is the proposition giving us a clue on how to achieve that?
Yeah, the proposition is quite clear to devolve a lot of powers to police at state level, to have a state police service commission. And you know the service commission deals with the way that police are recruited, their conditions of service, and so on. The operational issue is a major issue of interest to a lot of people. How do you ensure that in its operations at the state level, where governors have a huge role to play in the operations of the police at the state level, how do you ensure that the police is insulated from the political abuse that could happen when you have 36 different political controls of police? And how do you ensure, as you might see in countries where this operates, how do you ensure that from the central level you can intervene to prevent abuse of police powers that are controlled by states? So I think that I have not found an answer, but these are conversations going on within the National Assembly on how this can be achieved. Again, the examples are there for all of us to see how the issue of policing at the regional level was used in the 60s. And what led to centralization of the police. But unfortunately, you have centralized the police, and it comes with its own problem of abuse as well, but also of failure of command getting right down to where it should. And then the police, the bigger issue is even, how do you equip the police to maintain security in the country? The police are ill-armed, the police are not well remunerated, and certainly, you don't have enough police officers recruited. So you cannot police a country of 200 million people with less than 500,000 police officers. If you check the population of the police today, it's probably under 500,000 to police 200 million people. So there's a lot that needs to be done to ensure that you get the issue of internal security right.
Now, the proposer is tagged security and policing, and fundamentally said the alteration of the Constitution to provide for the establishment of state police and for related matters. So there will be alteration of sections 158, 197, 214, 215, 216, and part 1 and 2 of the second and third schedule of the Constitution to provide for the establishment of state police and the transfer of police as an item under the exclusive legislative list to the concurrent legislative list, which means that the president alone at the center is not going to be the controller of the police institution. So there will be police institution under the state. But there will be the question that people are asking is, these states are also having their own internal or state-controlled policing mechanism. Could that, creating a new structure, would that solve our problems?
I think when you look at some of the security arms that some states have created, and there are several of them across the country, I think one of the most known is Motekun. When you look at that, it doesn't authorize them to carry the sort of arms that is needed to maintain security, and they still need to get the federal police integrated into their operations. And this is replicated across the states that have tried to establish some level of internal security system. When you do establish state police, you are giving them full authority to be well armed, and the question is, will you have the same restrictions as to whether state police would be limited in terms of the nature of arms that is carried by the police? Criminals these days, bandits and so on, are operating with the most sophisticated weapons that you can think of. The Nigeria police are not even able to carry those kinds of weapons. So you have to look at across all of the operational issues of the police, even as it exists today. Do you need to tinker with so much? If you're not able to tinker with so much under the current system of policing that you have, will you do that with state police when it is created? So I think it's a deep reflection issue. For me, I would say that this is something that the president of the country needs to really look into directly.
And push by himself.
And push by himself, but make sure that every input from the best experts are obtained in terms of how you can operationalize an effective policing system in the country, whether it is side by side between a federal police and state police, or strengthening a federal police, or basically retooling this policing system. But a situation where you bring soldiers, bring in the military to maintain internal security is contrary to the Constitution and should not be allowed to operate.
I see some words being used in the amendment, words like reforms, and reforms in the area of judiciary, electoral reforms. And electoral reforms have been attempted a few times in the last few iterations. Electoral reform this time around is what we get a lot of Nigerians really very interested in these process. To what extent do you think we need to alter the Constitution to help us have a free and fair election?
I think if you take the lessons from observer reports from previous elections, whether it's 2019 or 2023, a couple of issues have always arisen. One is the extent to which we have elevated the judiciary into an important component of our electoral system. How do you eliminate that? I think that's an important question. How do you conduct elections? How do you build an electoral body that people have confidence in? When Professor Tahiru Jega organized elections, leading up, I think he organized 2 elections in 2011 and 2015, the electoral system built its own trust. Since then, the electoral system trust has declined in the country. The question is, how do you rebuild that? And we can't go into 2027 general elections with the kind of distrust you have of the electoral institution. And that's why the National Assembly is looking at a whole lot of things. One is reform the issue of election petition litigation, for instance. Reduce the levels of appellate tiers. For instance, the proposal is to get governorship elections to have only 2 tiers of election litigation, which is Court of Appeal, first jurisdiction, and then the Supreme Court. And the National Assembly just keep it at the National State House Assembly, keep it at the Election Petition Tribunal and the Court of Appeal. And then the proposal as well is to have the presidential elections go straight to the Supreme Court for adjudication. And then the proposal also with respect to elections is to ensure that all elections happen on the same day. And there is nothing that should be able to prevent that logistically. Thirdly...
I'm sorry, I'm smiling, Mr. Kumar.
Let me finish. Thirdly, to ensure that everything related to election petitions are concluded before anybody is sworn in. So those are the major...
That's a fantastic proposal.
Those are the major proposals that we have at this time the National Assembly is considering.
And if that is passed, we will forever not have staggered elections, off-cycle elections. Because the reason for off-cycle elections is because there are those who are in office and they were removed from office. The election had to be reconducted because of court judgments. And that's the reason why we have at least 9 of them in different states of the Federation, where we have governorship election in different states, where elections conducted, but judgments of court had to take those governors out, or elections had to be reconducted to to reposition based on how the elections were conducted. But I was smiling when you were talking about conducting elections in one day. A lot of things in politics in Nigeria seems like deja vu to me. It seems I've heard it before, I've seen it happen time and time again. When I know there was a debate whether to make the presidential election happen last and make the lower election happen first, and that has taken a huge political turn the conversation, because those who will say, oh, when even that created problem, how would this not create problem that you have election conducted in one day? Because what politicians do is that they test the water with one election, and when one layer of election is won, they use that in the next 2 weeks to be able to re-roll themselves into power, especially when they have a ruling party in office. And that's my biggest fear.
I think one concern is the bandwagon effect of staggering elections.
Absolutely.
That's one. Two, I believe that this country can conduct elections with 30% of the monies that it is spending on elections today, for several reasons. One, election has become a honeypot for those who are involved in it or those who manage it. So a lot of monies, incredible amounts of money is spent conducting elections, and this country cannot afford the cost of elections as we speak. So we must reduce it, and one way of reducing it is to limit all elections to happen on the same day. Thirdly, I think it's a question of election administration. I don't see why it cannot be managed for elections to happen on the same day. If it happens on the same day, you save a lot of money, you reduce bandwagon effect, you reduce manipulation, you reduce distrust of the electoral system, and you finally achieve what you have lauded, which is really election petitions concluding or conclude well ahead of swearing in of anybody. That will reduce the whole issue of staggered elections.
Right.
And as you know right now, one of the biggest issues is the cost that staggered elections has generated for the country's budget.
Let's go on another break, and when we come back, we will be wrapping up with Mr. Clement Nwanko. Everyone for staying with us. Our closing moments now on the electoral, the election, the constitution review, please, the constitutional review and the public hearing held today. And my focus is being state policing, electoral reforms, and I'm seeing the issue of judicial reforms also, which I think is also very critical, and some of the shenanigans that goes on in some of our courts, which we need to fix. Is this able to deal with it? I mean, I know as a very senior lawyer, there are a lot of things that you're not proud of as far as judgment of court, court orders that are conflicting, are coming one in Kamfancha, another one coming from Owerri, and everything looks like we're a very disorganized people.
I think that the issue of discipline of judges is so very important, and it's going to be up to the leadership of the judiciary to enforce those discipline issues. A lot of times when you have a corrupt system and politicians or even litigants pay for that corruption to persist, it requires a leadership in the judiciary that is able to put its foot down to say, look, these abuses need to not happen. And it's not just, when you talk of judicial reform, you're not just talking of election-related issues. There are people who go to court on a regular basis, who have been in court for years, who don't get justice. It's not because the law is not in place. It's mostly because of the abuse that comes with it. So I think that in addition to what the legislature is doing to carry out some reform processes that it has put in place, there is also the issue of ensuring that you do have a situation where the leadership of the judiciary takes very strong action against judges who abuse the judicial system.
One area that I see also very interesting is the devolution of powers. And their proposal to say the taxes and the levies that belong to the state should be taken by the state and align the other tier of government. There are those who believe that we have only 3. There are those who believe that we have only 2. That there is nothing like the local government as a tier of government, that is only the federal or the central government and the federating units.
Well, it's really 3 tiers of government that this National Assembly is seeking to entrench, and that is why the issue of local government reform comes in, and that's why there are proposals on how you can do this and how you can devolve more powers even to local governments. And when you look at the issue of the concurrent and exclusive list, the devolution of power looks at how you can ensure that this happens. And there is also the whole issue of fiscal independence around the country. Who has powers over what resources around the country? So there's a whole lot of conversation going on around this. And I think when the tax law comes into effect in January, a whole lot of issues are still going to come up. And I think those who have proposed the tax law need to prepare for the consequences of the implementation of the tax law next year. I do not think it will be a piece of cake. I think it would be a major, major, major issue as we go into 2026. But also, just to mention that the issue of defection is also one of the issues being considered here, that if you defect from the party that gave you the platform to run into elections, it constitutes gross misconduct. And as you know, gross misconduct is a ground for recall of legislators or impeachment of elected executive officials.
That is interesting.
So there's quite a lot.
Yeah, quite a lot. But it's good that we have you. Finally, do you think that this crop of lawmakers that we have are serious about these amendments?
Oh, I think you couldn't have any group much more serious about this, and that's why there's been a lot of consultation across all boards. But I can't end without making the point that this National Assembly should also note, and I speak as someone who has advocated this for a very long time, should also note that the bill on special seats for women is a defining bill, and that bill will need to be taken very seriously and passed in the 10th Assembly.
Thank you so much, Mr. Clement Uwanko. Sadly, that my dear state of Kwara may not have Ifesowakpo State coming out of it, and my Okun brothers in Kogi State may not have an Okun State coming out of it because of procedural constitutional processes. Interesting things that are happening. But that's our show for tonight. Thanks so much, Mr. Clement Uwanko. It's good to see you. This man is a Bible of some sort when it comes to constitutional law. Thanks so much indeed.
Thank you.
That's our show for tonight, everyone. Many thanks for watching. I'm Sean Kimberley. God bless you.